just less than half of an inch lower, he'd be alive today. And I'd probably have a long, lengthy prison sentence, but I wouldn't be on death row, man.
On the morning of May 20th, 2025, inside Indiana State Prison, the countdown began. After nearly 23 years on death row, Benjamin Donnie Ritchie was scheduled to die by lethal injection. Security was tight. Witnesses were prepped. A final statement would soon be heard. But before we talk about his last meal and final words, let's go back to the night it all began. It was September 29th, 2000. A white van was stolen from a gas station in Beech Grove, Indiana. Hours later, it was spotted by police, 3 men inside. One of them was about to change everything. It was around 8:40 p.m. when Officer Matthew Hickey responded to a traffic incident in Beech Grove, Indiana. As he stood on the roadside filling out paperwork, a white van slowly passed by. Something about it caught his attention. 3 men inside moving quickly, avoiding eye contact. He ran the plate. It was the same van that had been reported stolen just an hour earlier from a gas station nearby. Officer Hickey immediately called for backup and followed. 2 more officers responded, Robert Mercury and William Bill Toney. The van didn't go far. Within minutes, it swerved off the road and crashed into a quiet residential yard. The doors flew open. 2 men jumped out and ran. Officer Hickey caught one of them, Michael Greer, right there on the grass. But the second suspect, 20-year-old Benjamin Ritchie, was fast. He vaulted over fences, darted through backyards, and weaved between garden sheds and swing sets. Officer Bill Toney gave chase. Witnesses later described it as a blur of flashlight beams bouncing across lawns, the sound of running footsteps, the heavy breathing of 2 men locked in a deadly sprint. Then in one backyard, everything stopped. According to police reports, Benjamin suddenly turned. In a single motion, he reached into his waistband, pulled out a 9mm Glock, and fired 5 times. Officer Toney wore a bulletproof vest, but one bullet struck just above it, piercing his upper chest. He managed to return fire once, but his legs gave out. He collapsed on the grass, dropping his weapon. He died there just 1 day before his 32nd birthday. Officer William Bill Toney had served only 2 years on the force. He left behind a wife and 2 young daughters. As officers searched the area, they found something strange near the scene, a wig. Investigators believe Benjamin had been wearing it during the chase. Whether it was part of a disguise or panic-induced paranoia, no one could say for sure. After the shooting, Ritchie tossed both the wig and the gun into thick brush. Then he disappeared into the dark. After the shooting, Benjamin Ritchie vanished. Officers swarmed the neighborhood. Helicopters circled overhead. SWAT teams, sheriff's deputies, and local police sealed off streets, backyards, and alleyways. No one in Beech Grove was going anywhere that night. The perimeter was tight, but somehow Benjamin got through it. He made it to a friend's house several blocks away. No one saw him arrive, no one heard him knock, but by midnight he was hiding out and still free. The search stretched on. Over 100 officers were involved. Dogs tracked scent trails through wooded areas. Floodlights lit up entire blocks. Helicopters used thermal imaging to scan rooftops and yards. The situation was tense. Residents were told to stay indoors. Every shadow could be a threat. Every rustle sparked a response. Then, sometime before dawn, the break came. A phone call, an anonymous tip. It led officers straight to a quiet house just outside the search zone. When they entered, they found Benjamin Ritchie inside. He didn't resist. He didn't run. He was arrested on the spot. Also in the house was Michael Moody, the 3rd man from the stolen van. Officers arrested him too. The manhunt was over, but Benjamin Ritchie's legal battle was just beginning. Benjamin Donnie Ritchie was born on May 30th, 1980, into a life already stacked against him. He never met his biological father. His mother, Marion Martin, battled drug and alcohol addiction even while pregnant with him. She worked as a stripper and moved frequently, dragging Benjamin from one unstable environment to the next. By age 3, she had already abandoned him twice. When he started school, the effects of that early instability became clear. Benjamin acted out. He struggled with basic tasks. By 9th grade, he dropped out entirely. At just 10 years old, he was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Doctors diagnosed him with bipolar disorder and cognitive impairments likely linked to prenatal substance exposure and early trauma. He needed help, but the system had little to offer. At 18, he was arrested for burglary and sentenced to prison. By 2000, he was out again, but still on probation, still drifting. His record followed him. So did the instability. Some who knew him described a boy who never had a chance. Others saw a growing threat with a short fuse. In the weeks before the shooting, Benjamin was unemployed, unmedicated, and barely connected to any support system. On the night of September 29, 2000, all of that chaos caught up with him. The trial began in Marion County just weeks after Benjamin Ritchie's arrest. Prosecutors moved quickly. They announced they would seek the death penalty. Benjamin's defense argued the shooting was not intentional. In a recorded jail interview, he claimed the gun slipped from his hand as he ran. He said it fired on its own. One of his friends supported the story, saying Ritchie panicked. He knew another arrest could land him back in prison for 8 more years. The defense emphasized his mental health history. They said Benjamin had suffered brain damage due to his mother's drug use during pregnancy. They presented his psychiatric evaluations, painting him as a broken boy raised in chaos. But the prosecution was firm. They argued that suffering didn't excuse murder. They reminded the jury that many people grow up in terrible circumstances and don't kill police officers. This case, they said, wasn't about trauma, it was about choice. Then came the moment that silenced the courtroom. The prosecution revealed a tattoo on Benjamin's neck, the number 37. It was not random. That was Officer Bill Toney's unit number. To the jury, it was a chilling message, a permanent reminder inked by the man who pulled the trigger. Emotions in the courtroom ran high. Officer Toney's widow, Dee, sat through every moment. In later interviews, she said all she wanted was justice. For her, that meant execution. Benjamin showed no remorse. He laughed in court. When Dee called him a coward, he looked her in the eye and called her a derogatory name. On August 10th, the jury delivered its verdict, guilty on all counts: murder, auto theft, illegal possession of a firearm, resisting arrest. 4 days later, on August 14th, they returned again with the sentence. After just 3 hours of deliberation, it was unanimous death. Benjamin Ritchie was sent to Indiana's death row. After sentencing, Benjamin Ritchie was transferred to Indiana's death row. He would spend the next 2 decades there waiting. In most states, death row is cold, isolating, and silent. But Indiana had one unusual feature: inmates were allowed to keep cats in their cells. The program, designed to reduce aggression and improve mental health, gave prisoners the responsibility of caring for a living creature. And Benjamin signed up. Then something unexpected happened. Thousands of miles away in Sweden, a woman named Ivana watched a documentary about death row inmates. One of the faces stayed with her, Benjamin Ritchie. She didn't know why, but she decided to write him. A letter became 2, then 10, then visits. Ivana flew across the Atlantic to meet him in person. They sat across from each other behind thick prison glass, and somehow, despite the bars, the past, and the sentence hanging over his head, they fell in love. For nearly 4 years, she returned again and again. She brought books, conversation, and moments of connection into a place designed to erase them. Even on death row, Benjamin was no longer entirely alone. As the years passed, Benjamin Ritchie filed appeal after appeal. Each one was denied. In early 2025, the date was finally set, May 20th. In the weeks leading up to it, Benjamin requested clemency. He told the parole board he was sorry, that he had changed, that the man who pulled the trigger in 2000 wasn't the man he was anymore. He said he still had something left to give, something good. But the board was unmoved. The state denied clemency. In the final 24 hours, Benjamin was moved to the execution chamber holding area. He made no outburst, no statements of protest, just silence. For his last meal, he chose what Olive Garden calls the Tour of Italy chicken parmigiano lasagna and fettuccine alfredo. Alongside it, he asked for a Coke. At 12:01 a.m., the execution process began. Witnesses stood behind glass. The needle was inserted into his arm. His final words were simple. "I love my family, my friends, and all the support I've gotten. I hope they all find peace." At 12:46 a.m., Benjamin Donnie Ritchie was pronounced dead. He was 44 years old. His death marked the end of a case that had stretched across nearly a quarter century. For some, it was closure. For others, it raised new questions about justice, punishment, and redemption. But the record is clear. Benjamin Ritchie pulled the trigger. A police officer died, and after 23 years, so did he.